Okay, so hello everybody. This is Colson-Eyre. It is April the 5th, 2020. I just changed my calendars like today. I thought, what day is it? I mean, honestly, I realized today that we have not been to, had church at the church building for 4 weeks. Can y'all believe it's been 4 weeks that that's happened? And so I said, Brad, I guess that first weekend, and then some churches met, some didn't. But it's hard to believe that it's already been 4 weeks that we have been in all of this stuff. So I applaud y'all for hanging in there with me and just surviving and thriving through all of this. And it may get worse before it gets better, but lots of prayers have been going up. And I think a lot of people have looked to God for help and have read their Bible more and prayed more and have connected with people more. So there are a lot of blessings that are coming from this that we're just so thankful. And, when something is taken away from you that you've always had, it makes you more grateful when you get it back, right? I cannot wait to see everybody again. Can y'all not wait to get together again and have a really big Mary Kay meeting? I can't wait. So I'm looking forward to that day. And I know that it's going to be a big, big celebration. So what I wanted to do today, I wanted to give y'all just a couple of little practical things. And this is not necessarily about Mary Kay. This is about you. But financially, I just want you to be aware, most of you are, but in case you're not, if you have any kind of, credit cards and things like that you're trying to pay and your income has been lowered, you can actually go to any of your credit card companies like the Mary Kay card that we use, some of y'all who use Chase Bank, all those other ones. And as simple as logging into your account, and there's usually at the top of the page a place to click if you need your payment deferred for a month or two. And so that may help some of y'all this month or in the months to come. I would probably do it now and put my money aside, because you don't know what this month is going to look like, right? And so because if your husband is unemployed, maybe is not getting as much money or you have another job, whatever it is, all these credit card companies and banks most of them are letting you defer your payment 1, 2, and 3 months. So I just wanted to let y'all know that. I just, even did it myself. And then I may pay some, but then you know what? You don't know what this month is going to look like. So anyway, I want to let you know that. Also, some of you that work your Mary Kay business full time and you do not have another job, like Mary Kay is your only income for yourself. I'm not talking about your husband, just you. There are some things available to you, and it just depends on how much money you've made in Mary Kay and things like that. And I can't answer questions, but I did watch a video from Ari Hathaway that was very good. I'll post it on the Boss Babes and my website. But anyway, she's just a national that was telling about it, kind of friend to friend. But you can go to SBA, Small Business Association, SBA, the site on the internet, and then you'll see several things. And a couple of them are some things that you can apply for paycheck protection and some things like that. So there's 3 or 4 different options on there for you if you're self-employed with Mary Kay, which all of you are, but if you don't have another job. Okay, so if you're working for somebody else, you can't take advantage of these particular ones. So anyway, look into that. I will post that video so y'all can get a little more information about it. Don't call me and ask me for questions because I really don't know. Brad filled one of them out for me and he's got the other one to fill out. So for once in my life, I don't have to figure it out. So it's kind of nice. I'm sure I could if I needed to. But anyway, I did want to mention those 2 things to you. Also, all the distribution centers are open except for one. So Mary Kay is doing great as far as, right now we have all our products. I've been, in that matter of fact, my order that I did on the 30th came, really quick, like on Thursday. So that was the 3rd. So that was really fast. I don't know if y'all's order from the last day of the month, but so far I have not seen any delay for us. I mean, I know we're kind of lucky because we're in Georgia and our distribution center's in Georgia, but so far all is a go with your Mary Kay business. So I don't want y'all to worry about that part with Mary Kay. And customer delivery service is still zooming and running. So if you don't have the products on hand and you are an active beauty consultant, you have a Mary Kay website, and you can do that tonight if you don't have one. Mary Kay website, because that's only $30 a year. And for directors, it's free. We all got one. But anyway, and you have signed up to use ProPay. If you have those three things, ProPay, an active website, and you are an active Mary Kay beauty consultant, you can also ship through customer delivery service. And what that means is, let's say someone ordered a time-wise repair set and you don't have it in stock, or possibly you can't get to the post office for some reason, whatever. You can go to your customers on the Mary Kay In Touch or on your app, and you can place an order, pull that customer up, and a new order for her, and it'll say, how do you want to deliver it, through your inventory, or do you want to deliver it through, it says customer delivery service. Sometimes we say CDS. And if you do CDS, then it'll go through there. You'll just enter her credit card number if you have it, or if she's paid you a check or Venmo or Cash App or some other form of payment, then you'll simply put in your credit card number. Or if you have money in your ProPay account right now, you could use it. Okay. But you'll have to have your actual ProPay card. So anyway, they'll ship it straight to your customer. And basically what they do is they put your profit into your ProPay account. If they use your own credit card, well, they're just going to charge you the cost of it. So you already have your profit. So anyway, I just want to let y'all know, some of you may have never done that. That is an option for you right now when you're selling and your, things are just a little different than they used to be. Okay. So that's a little financial friend to friend tips from me. Also, if you're filing your taxes, you don't have to sweat on April 15th if you don't have them ready. You can do it as late as July 15th. Obviously, if you are going to get a refund, I would file my taxes. I mean, like, why not? If you're fixing to get a refund, get them on in so you can have some money, right? So anyway, and all of us should be getting a stimulus check, around $1,200 according to how much you make. And that should go into your account, or they'll mail you the money. So anyway, we're going to get some financial help. So some of you that have kind of had a little bit of anxiety about money, not only just selling your Mary Kay, but there are some things that are going to be happening that's going to help you. So, but you do have to pay attention, because if you're out in la land, there's some things that you could take advantage of, but some of it is not automatic. Not the stimulus check, yes, but none of the rest of the stuff is. Okay. So there's some little tips from the top. Okay, so today, this is so weird how it's just how God works. But a couple of weeks ago, maybe 2 weeks ago, I saw something on somebody's website, and it said about the book Who Moved My Cheese. How many of y'all that are on here right now remember that book? Okay, it's from 1998, and I thought, I didn't even read the whole thing. I just thought someone just made a little comment about it. Well, I was doing a little Zoom call yesterday in my kitchen, and I was doing it with my iPad. It was way too low, making me look way too big. So I was trying to raise the thing. And so I reached over there, and then I had a drawer of some stuff, and I just pulled out a couple of books. And one was a Bible from my Nana from 1974 that they'd given me when she passed away. And I'm thinking, I don't even remember that I've ever flipped through it. There was all kind of things in that Bible. And so, and then I just pulled out another book to put underneath it, and it was Who Moved My Cheese? I cannot even believe, it's just funny how you see it, and then you find a book that's hidden in a drawer that I haven't seen in years. And I actually got this in the fall of 2000. There's a little note in here. And, but I looked at it, and it was actually published in 1998. And so if you have not heard of this book, Who Moved My Cheese, and it's by Spencer Johnson. There's these little tiny books that you can read really, really quick. And I contemplated just reading you the story of Who Moved My Cheese. It's like story time with Cleta. I thought about it. And so I'm going to look right here, and I still might. I'm going to see how many pages it was, because I read the whole book. I mean, I sat down and ate lunch and read the whole book. So it might be a little too long, but I am going to read a little bit of it. And so let me just tell you about it. And we're going to apply it to what is going on right now with us. Okay, so you got to remember that this time was 1998, and the different changes that were going on in 1998 were geared up to the year 2000, where people were freaking out, right? Y2K, don't y'all remember? People thought, actually, you know what? Everybody thought, what's happening now? That's what they thought was going to happen on January the 1st, that we would have no internet. Of course, we weren't even that much into the internet. People would freak out now, right? But people were in kind of a panic. But this little story is about four little characters, and it is there is two mice that are in the story. One is called Sniff, and one is called Scurry. Two little mice, and then there's two little people, and they are Hem and Haw. Okay, Hem and Haw, as in Hem, Hem, Haw. Okay, Sniff and Scurry. So I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, and as I read a little bit of this to you, I want you to think, who are you in this story? Okay, so you will be one of these characters, and sometimes we're all of these characters. And so I think you'll like it. I think you'll really be able to apply it. Okay, so here we go. Story time with Cleta. All right, once long ago in a land far away, there lived four little characters who ran through the maze looking for cheese to nourish them and make them happy. Two mice were named Sniff and Scurry, and two were little people, beings who were as small as mice, but who looked and acted a lot like people today. Their names were Hem and Haw. Due to their small size, it would be easy not to notice what the four of them were doing. But if you look closely, you could discover the most amazing things. Every day, the mice and the little people spent time in the maze looking for their own special cheese. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, possessing only simple rodent brains but good instincts, searched for the hard nibbling cheese they like, as mice do. The two little people, Hem and Haw, used their brains, filled with many beliefs and emotions, to search for a very different kind of cheese with a capital C, which they believed would make them feel happy and successful. As different as the mice and the little people were, they shared something in common. Every morning, they each put on their suits and their running shoes, sounds like Selah, left their little homes and raced out into the maze looking for their favorite cheese. The maze was a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, some containing delicious cheese, but there were always also dark corners and blind alleys leading nowhere. It was an easy place for anyone to get lost. However, for those who found their way, the maze held secrets that let them enjoy a better life. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, used the simple trial and error method of finding cheese. They ran down one corridor, and if it proved empty, they turned down and ran down another one. They remembered the corridors that held no cheese and quickly went to new areas. Sniff would smell out the general direction of the cheese using his great nose. That's me. I'm kind of sniffy like that. And Scurry would race ahead. They got lost, as you might expect, went off in the wrong direction, and often bumped into walls. But after a while, they found their way. Like the mice, the two little people, Hem and Haw, also used their ability to think and learn from their past experience. However, they relied on their complex brain to help them more sophisticated methods of finding cheese. Sometimes they did well, but other times their powerful human beliefs and emotions took over and clouded the way they looked at things. It made life in the maze more complicated and challenging. Nonetheless, Sniff, Scurry, Hem, and Haw all discovered in their own way what they were looking for. They each found their own kind of cheese. One day at the end of the quarters in Cheese Station C. Every morning after that, the mice and the little people dressed in their running gear and headed over to Cheese Station C. It wasn't long before they each established their own routine. Sniff and Scurry continued to wake early every day, raced through the maze, always following the same route. When they arrived at the destination, the mice took off their running shoes, tied them together, and hung them around their neck so they could get to them quickly whenever they needed them again. Then they enjoyed the cheese. In the beginning, Hem and Haw also raced toward the cheese station every morning to enjoy the tasty new morsels that awaited them. But after a while, a different routine set in for the little people. Hem and Haw awoke each day a little later, dressed a little slower, walked to the cheese station C. After all, they knew where the cheese was and how to get there. They had no idea where the cheese came from or who put it there. They just assumed it'd always be there. As soon as Hem and Haw arrived at the cheese station each morning, they settled in, made themselves at home. They hung up their jogging shoes, put away their running shoes, and put on their slippers. Okay. Visual aid. Okay. They were becoming very comfortable now that they had found the cheese. This is great, Him said. There's enough cheese here to last us forever. The little people felt happy and successful and thought they were now secure. It wasn't long before Him and Hall regarded the cheese they found at Cheese Station as their cheese. It was such a large store of cheese that they eventually moved their homes to be closer to it and built a social life around it. To make themselves feel more at home, Him and Hall decorated the walls with sayings and even drew pictures of cheese around them, which made them smile. One read, "Having cheese makes you happy." Okay. Sometimes Him and Hall would take their friends by to see their pile of cheese at the cheese station C and point to it with pride, saying, "Pretty nice cheese, huh?" Sometimes they shared with their friends, sometimes they didn't. "We deserve this cheese," said Him. "We certainly had to work long and hard enough to find it." He picked up a nice, fresh piece and ate it, as he often did. Afterwards, Him fell asleep, as he often did. Every night, the little people would waddle home full of cheese, and every morning they would confidently return for more. This went on for quite some time. After a while, Him and Hall's confidence grew into an arrogance of success. Soon they became so comfortable they didn't even notice what was happening. As time went on, Sniff and Scurry continued their routine. They arrived early every morning. They sniffed and scratched and scurried around Cheese City, inspecting the area to see if there had been any changes from the day before. Then they sat down and nibbled on the cheese. One morning, they arrived at Cheese Station C and discovered there was no cheese. They weren't surprised, since Sniff and Scurry had noticed the supply of cheese had been getting smaller every day. They were prepared for the inevitable and they knew instinctively what to do. They looked at each other, removed the running shoes they had tied together that were hung conveniently around their neck, put them on, laced them up. The mice didn't overanalyze things. To the mice, the problem, the answer were both simple. The situation at Cheese Station C had changed, so Sniff and Scurry decided to change. They both looked out into the maze, then Sniff lifted his nose, sniffed, nodded over to Scurry, who took off running through the maze, while Sniff followed as fast as he could. They were quickly off in search of the new cheese. Later that same day, Him and Hall arrived at Cheese Station C. They had not been paying attention to small details that had been taking place every day, so they took it for granted that the cheese would always be there. They were unprepared for what they found. "What? No cheese?" Him yelled. He continued yelling, "No cheese, no cheese," as though if he shouted loud enough, someone would put it back. "Who moved my cheese?" he hollered. Finally, he put his hand on his hip, his face turned red, and he screamed at the top of his lungs, "It's not fair!" Hall just shook his head in belief. He too had counted on finding cheese at the Cheese Station C. He stood there for a long time, frozen with shock. He was just not ready for this. Him was yelling something, but Hall didn't want to hear it. He didn't want to deal with what was facing, so he just tuned everything out. The little people's behavior was not very attractive or productive, but it was understandable. Finding cheese wasn't easy, and it meant a great deal more to the little people than just having enough of it to eat every day. Finding cheese was the little people's way of getting what they thought they needed to be happy. They had their own ideas of what cheese meant to them, depending on their taste. For some, finding cheese was having material things. For others, it was enjoying good health or developing a spiritual sense of well being. For Hall, cheese just meant feeling safe, having a loving family someday, and living in a cozy cottage on Cheddar Lane. To him, cheese was becoming a big cheese, in charge of others, and owning a big house on top of Camembert Hill. That's a type of cheese. Because cheese was so important to him, the two little people spent a long time trying to decide what to do. All they could think of was to keep looking around the cheeseless Station C to see if the cheese really was gone. While Sniff and Scurry had quickly moved on, Him and Hall continued to hem and haw. While they ranted and raved at the injustice of it all, Hall started to get depressed. What would happen if the cheese wasn't there tomorrow? He had made future plans based on this cheese. The little people just couldn't believe it. How could this have happened? No one had warned them. It wasn't right. It was not the way things were supposed to be. Him and Hall went home that night, hungry and discouraged. But before they left, Hall wrote on the wall, The more important your cheese is to you, the more you want to hold on to it. Okay? Are y'all getting the story yet? Okay. The next day, him and Hall left their homes and returned to Cheese Station C again, where they still expected somehow to find their cheese. The situation hadn't changed. The cheese was still no longer there. The little people didn't know what to do. Him and Hall just stood there, immobilized like two statues. Hall just shut his eyes as tight as he could and put his hands over his ears. He just wanted to block everything out. He didn't want to know the cheese supply had gradually been getting smaller. He believed it had been moved all of a sudden. Him analyzed the situation over and over, and eventually his complicated brain with his huge belief system took a hold. Why did they do this to me? He demanded. What's really going on here? Finally, Hall opened his eyes, looked around, and said, by the way, where's Sniff and Scurry? Do you think they know something we don't? Him scoffed. What would they know? They're just simple mice. They just respond to what happens. We're little people. We're smarter than mice. We should be able to figure this out. I know we're smarter, Hall said, but we don't seem to be acting smarter at the moment. Things are changing around here, Him. Maybe we need to change and do things differently. Why should we change? Him asked. We're little people. We're special. This sort of thing should not happen to us. Or if it does, we should at least get some benefits. Why should we get benefits? Hall asked. Because we're entitled, said Him. Entitled to what? Hall wanted to know. We're entitled to our cheese. Why? Hall asked. Because we didn't cause this problem, Him said. Somebody else did this and we should get something out of it. Hall suggested, maybe we should stop analyzing the situation so much and just get going and find some new cheese. Oh no, Him argued. I'm going to get to the bottom of this. While Him and Hall were still trying to decide on what to do, Sniff and Scurry were already well on their way. They went further into the maze, up and down corridors, looking for cheese at every cheese station they could find. They didn't think of anything else but finding new cheese. They didn't find any for some time until they finally went to an area of a maze where they'd never been before, Cheese Station Inn. They squealed with delight. They found what they had been looking for, a great supply of new cheese. They could hardly believe their eyes. It was the biggest store of cheese the mice had ever seen. In the meantime, Him and Hall were still back at Cheese Station C, evaluating their situation. They were now suffering from the effects of having no cheese. They were becoming frustrated and angry and were blaming each other for the situation they were in. Now and then, Hall thought about his mice friends, Sniff and Scurry, and wondered if they'd found any cheese yet. He believed they might be having a hard time, as running through the maze usually involved some uncertainty, but he also knew that it was likely only to last for a while. Sometimes Hall would imagine Sniff and Scurry finding new cheese and enjoying it. He thought about how good it would be for him to be out on an adventure in the maze and to find fresh new cheese. He could almost taste it. The more clearly Hall saw the image of himself in new cheese, the more he saw him leaving the Cheese Station C. Let's go, he complained. He explained all of a sudden. No, Him quickly responded. I like it here. It's comfortable. It's what I know. Besides, it's dangerous out there. No, it isn't, Hall argued. We've run through many parts of the maze before. We can do it again. I'm getting too old for that, Him said, and I'm afraid I'm not interested in getting lost and making a fool of myself. Are you? With that, Hall's fear of failed returned, and his hope of finding new cheese faded. So every day, the little people continued to do what they've done before. They went Cheese Station C, found no cheese, returned home, carrying their worries and frustrations with them. They tried to deny what was happening, but found it harder to get to sleep. They had less energy the next day, and they were becoming irritable. Have y'all figured out who you are yet? Okay, their homes were not the nurturing places they once were. The little people had difficulty sleeping and were having nightmares about not finding any cheese. But Him and Hall still returned to Cheese Station and waited there every day. Him said, you know, if we just work harder, we'll find that nothing has really changed that much. The cheese is probably nearby. Maybe it's just hid behind the wall. The next day, Him and Hall returned with tools. Him held the chisel while Hall banged on the hammer till they made a hole in the wall of the cheese station. They peered inside but found no cheese. They were disappointed, but they believed they could solve the problem. So they started earlier, stayed longer, worked harder. But after a while, all they had was a large hole in the wall. Hall was beginning to realize the difference between activity and productivity. Maybe, Him said, we should just sit here and see what happens. Sooner or later, they'll. Hall wanted to believe that, so each day he went home to rest and returned reluctantly with him to Cheese Station C, but Cheese never reappeared. By now, the little people were growing weak from hunger and stress. Hall was getting tired of just waiting for the situation to improve. He began to see that the longer they stayed in their cheeseless situation, the worse they would be. Hall knew they were losing their edge. Finally, one day, Hall began laughing at himself. Hall, look at us. We keep doing the same things over and over again and wonder why things don't get better. If this wasn't so ridiculous, it would even be funny. Hall did not like the idea of having to run through the maze again because he knew he'd get lost. He had no idea where he would find any cheese, but he had to laugh at his folly when he saw what his fear was doing to him. He asked him, where did we put our running shoes? It took a long time to find them because they put everything away when they found their cheese on Cheese Station C, thinking they wouldn't be needing them anymore. As Him saw his friend getting his running gear, he said, you're not really going out there to the maze again, are you? Why don't you just sit back here with me until they put our cheese back? Because you don't get it, Hall said. I don't want to see it either, but now I realize they're never going to put yesterday's cheese back. It's time to find new cheese. Him argued, but what if there's no cheese out there? Or even if there is, what if you don't find it? I don't know, said Hall. He'd asked himself those questions many times, felt the fears again that kept him where he was. He asked himself, where am I more likely to find cheese, here or in the maze? He painted a picture in his mind. He saw himself venturing out to the maze with a smile on his face. While this picture surprised him, it made him feel good. He saw himself getting lost now and then in the maze, but felt confident he would eventually find new cheese out there and all the good things that came with it. He gathered his courage. Then he used his imagination to paint the most believable picture he could, with the most realistic details of him finding and enjoying the taste of new cheese. He saw himself eating Swiss cheese with holes in it, bright orange cheddar cheese, American cheese, Italian mozzarella, and wonderfully soft French camembert cheese. And then he heard Him say something and realized they were still at Cheese Station C. Hall said, sometimes Him things change like they're never the same again. This looks like one of those times. That's life. Life moves on, and so should we. Hall looked at his emancipated companion and he tried to talk some sense into him, but Him's fear had turned into anger and he wouldn't listen. Hall didn't mean to be rude to his friend, but he had to laugh how silly they both looked. As Hall prepared to leave, he started to feel more alive, knowing that he was finally able to laugh at himself and let go and move on. Hall laughed and announced, it's maze time. Him didn't laugh and he didn't respond. Hall picked up a small sharp rock and wrote a serious thought on the wall for Him to think about, as was his custom. Hall even drew a picture of cheese around it, hoping it would help Him to smile and lighten up and go after the new cheese. But Him didn't want to see it. It read, if you do not change, you can become extinct. Okay, I'm almost done. Then Hall stuck his head out and peered anxiously into the maze. He thought about how he'd gotten himself to this cheeseless situation. He believed there may not be any cheese in the maze, or he may not be able to find it. Such fearful beliefs were immobilizing and killing him. Hall smiled. He knew Him was wondering, who moved my cheese? But Hall was wondering, why didn't I get up and move with the cheese sooner? As he started into the maze, Hall looked back to where he had come from and felt his comfort. He could feel himself being drawn back into familiar territory, even though he hadn't found the cheese there for some time. Hall became more anxious and wondered if he really wanted to go out to the maze. He wrote a saying on the wall ahead of him and he stared at it for some time. What would you do if you were not afraid? There's a lot of Mary Kay stuff in here, right? He thought about it. He knew sometimes fear can be good. When you're afraid of things that are going to get worse if you don't do something, it can prompt you into action. But it's not good when you're so afraid it keeps you from doing anything. He looked to his right, to the part of the maze where he'd never been, and he felt the fear. Then he took a deep breath. He turned right into the maze and he jogged slowly into the unknown. And as he tried to find his way, Hall worried at first that he might have waited too long in Cheese Station C. He hadn't had any cheese for so long, he was now weak. It took him longer and it was more painful than usual to get through the maze. He decided that if he ever got the chance again, he would get out of his comfort zone and adapt to change sooner. It would make things easier. Then Hall smiled a weak smile and he thought, better late than never. During the next several days, Hall found a little cheese here and there, but nothing that lasted very long. He'd hoped to find enough cheese to take back some to him and encourage him to come out of the maze. But Hall didn't feel confident enough yet. He had to admit he found it confusing in the maze. Things seemed to have changed since last time he was out there. Just when he thought he was getting ahead, he would get lost in the corridors. It seemed his progress was 2 steps forward and 1 step back. It was a challenge, but he had to admit that being back in the maze hunting for cheese, it wasn't nearly half as bad as he feared it would be. At this time, as time went on, he began to wonder if it was realistic for him to ever expect to find new cheese. He wondered if he had bitten off more than he could chew. Then he laughed, realizing that he had nothing to chew on at the moment. When he started to get discouraged, he reminded himself what he was doing and as uncomfortable as it was at the moment. It was in reality much better than staying in the cheeseless situation. He was taking control rather than simply letting things go, letting things happen to him. Then he reminded himself if Sniffy and Scurry could move on, so could he. Later, as Hall looked back on things, he realized that the cheese at Cheese Station C had not just disappeared overnight, as he once believed. The amount of cheese that had been there toward the end had been getting smaller, and what was left had grown old. It didn't taste as good. Mold may even have grown on cheese. He hadn't noticed. He had to admit, however, that if he had wanted to, he probably could have seen what was coming, but he didn't. Hall now realized that the change probably would not have taken him by surprise had he been watching what was happening all along and if he had anticipated change. Maybe that's what Sniff and Scurry had been doing. He would stay more alert from now on. He would expect change to happen and look for it. He would trust his basic instincts to sense when change was going to occur and be ready to adapt to it. He stopped for rest for a while and wrote on the wall of the maze, "Smell the cheese often, so you know when it's getting old." Sometimes later, after not finding cheese for what seemed like a long time, Hall finally came to a huge cheese station, what looked promising. When he went in, however, it was most disappointing to discover the cheese station was empty. This empty feeling has happened to me often, he thought. He felt like giving up. Hall was losing his physical strength. He knew he was lost and he was afraid he wouldn't survive. He thought about turning around and headed back to Cheese Station C. At least if he made it back, him was still there, Hall would be alone. Then he asked himself the same question: what would I do if I weren't afraid? Hall thought he was past his fear, but he was afraid more often than he liked to admit, even to himself. He wasn't always sure what he was afraid of, but in his weakened condition, he knew how he was simply fearful of going on alone. Hall didn't know it, but he was running behind because he was still weighed down by fearful beliefs. Hall wondered if him had moved on, or if he was still paralyzed by his own fears. Then Hall remembered the times when he felt his best in the maze. It was when he was moving along. He wrote on the wall, knowing it was as much as a reminder to himself as it was a marking for his friend him, hopefully to follow. Movement in a new direction helps you find new cheese. Hall looked down from the dark passageway and was aware of his fear. What lay ahead? Was it empty, or worse, were dangers lurking? He began to imagine all kinds of frightening things that could happen to him. He was scaring himself to death. Then he laughed at himself again. He realized his fears were making things worse, so he did what he would do if he wasn't afraid. He moved into a new direction. He started running down the corridor and began to smile. Hall didn't realize it yet, but he was discovering what nourished his soul. He was letting go and trusting what lay ahead for him, even though he didn't know exactly what it was. To his surprise, Hall started to enjoy himself more and more. Why do I feel so good? He wondered. I don't have any cheese and I don't know where I'm going. Before long, he knew why he felt good. He stopped to write again on the wall. When you move beyond your fear, you feel free. Hall realized he had been held captive by his own fear. Moving in a new direction had freed him. Now he felt the cool breeze that was flowing in this part of the maze, and it was refreshing. He took in some deep breaths. He felt invigorated by the movement. Once he got past his fear, it turned out to be more enjoyable than he once believed it could be. Hall hadn't felt this way for a long time. He had almost forgotten how much fun it was to go for it. To make things even better, Hall started to paint a picture in his mind. He saw himself in great realistic detail, sitting in the middle of a pile of his favorite cheese. From cheddar to brie, he saw himself eating the many cheeses he liked, and he enjoyed what he saw. Then he imagined how much he would really enjoy all their great taste. The more clearly he saw the image of himself enjoying the new cheese, the more real and believable it became. He could sense he was going to find it. He wrote, "Imagining myself enjoying the new cheese even before I find it leads me to it." Hall kept thinking about what he could gain instead of what he was losing. He wondered why he always thought about what a change would lead to something worse. Now he realized that change could lead to something better. Why didn't I see this before? He asked himself. Then he raced through the maze with greater strength and agility. Before long, he spotted a cheese station and he became excited and he noticed little pieces of new cheese near the entrance. They were types of cheese he'd never seen before, but they looked great. He tried them and found they were delicious. He ate most of the new cheese bits that were available and put a few in his pocket to have later and perhaps share them with him. He began to regain his strength. He entered the cheese station with great excitement, but to his dismay, he found it was empty. Someone already had been there and only left a few bits of new cheese. He realized that if he had moved sooner, he would have very likely have found a good deal of new cheese here. Hall decided to go back and see if Him was ready to join him. He retraced his step and he stopped and wrote on the wall, "The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you'll find new cheese." After a while, Hall made his way back to Cheese Station C and found Him. He offered him bits of new cheese, but was turned down. Him appreciated his friend's gesture, but said, "I don't think I like the new cheese. It's not what I'm used to. I want my own cheese back, and I'm not going to change till I get what I want." Hall just shook his head in disappointment, and he reluctantly went back on his own. As he returned to the furthest part he had reached in the maze, he missed his friend, but he realized he liked what he was discovering. Even before he found what he hoped would be a great supply of new cheese, if ever, he knew that he had made what made him happy. Wasn't just having cheese. He was happy when he wasn't being run by his fear, and he liked what he was doing now. Knowing this, Hall didn't feel as weak as he did when he stayed in Cheese Station C with no cheese. Just realizing he was not letting his fear stop him and knowing that he had taken a new direction nourished him and gave him strength. Now he felt like it was just a question of time before he found what he needed. In fact, he sensed he'd already found it. What he was looking for. He smiled and he realized it's safer to search in the maze than remain in a cheeseless situation. Hall realized, as he had once before, that what you're afraid of is never as bad as what you imagine. The fear you let build up in your mind is worse than the situation actually exists. He'd been so afraid of never finding new cheese, he didn't even want to start looking. But since starting his journey, he had found enough cheese in the corridors to keep him going. Now he looked forward to finding more. Just looking ahead was becoming exciting. His old thinking had been clouded by his worries and his fears. He used to think about not having enough cheese, not having it last as long as he wanted. He used to think about what would go wrong instead of what would go right. But that changed in the days since he had left Cheese Station C. He used to believe that cheese would never be moved and the change wasn't right. Now it was natural for him to continually occur, whether you expect it or not. Naturally, for change to continually occur, whether you expect it or not. Change could surprise you, only if you didn't expect it and you weren't looking for it. When he had realized he had changed his beliefs, he paused to write on the wall, "Old beliefs do not lead you to new cheese." Hall hadn't even found cheese yet, but he ran through the maze. He thought about what he had already learned. Hall realized that his beliefs were encouraging new behaviors. He was behaving differently than when he kept returning to the same cheeseless situation. He knew when you change what you believe, you change what you do. You can believe that a change will harm you and you'll resist it. Or you can believe that finding new cheese will help you and embrace the change. It all depends on what you choose to believe. So he wrote on the wall, when you see that you can find and enjoy new cheese, you change course. Hall knew he would be in better shape now had he dealt with the change much sooner and left Cheese Station C earlier. He would feel stronger in body and spirit, and he would have coped better with the challenge of finding new cheese. In fact, he probably would have found it on his own by now if he had expected change, rather than wasting time denying that the change really had taken place. He used his imagination again and saw himself finding and savoring new cheese. He decided to proceed into the more unknown parts of the maze and found little bits of cheese here and there. Hall began to regain his strength and confidence. As he thought back on where he had come from, Hall was glad when he had written on the wall in many places. He trusted that it would serve as a marked trail for him to follow through the maze if he chose to leave Cheese Station C. Hall just hoped that he was headed in the right direction. He thought about the possibility that him would read the handwriting on the wall and find his way. He wrote on the wall what he had been thinking about for some time. Noticing small changes early helps you adapt to big changes that are to come. By now, Hall had let go of the past and was adapting to the present. He continued on the maze with greater strength and speed, and before long it happened. When it seemed like he'd been in the maze forever, his journey, or at least this part of his journey, ended quickly and happily. Hall proceeded along a corridor that was new to him, rounded a corner, and found new cheese at Cheese Station Inn. When he went inside, he was startled by what he saw. Piled high everywhere was the greatest supply of cheese he had ever seen. He didn't recognize all that he saw, as some kinds of cheese were new to him. Then he wondered for a moment, was this real or was this his imagination? Until he saw his old friends Sniff and Scurry. Sniff welcomed Hall with a nod of his head, and Scurry waved his paw. Their fat little bellies showed they'd been there for some time. Hall quickly said to his hellos and took bites of everyone's favorite cheeses. He pulled off his shoes, he tied the laces together, and he hung them around his neck in case he needed them again. Sniff and Scurry just laughed. They nodded their heads in admiration. Then Hall jumped onto the new cheese. When he had eaten his fill, he lifted a fresh piece of cheese and made a toast. Hooray for the change! As Hall enjoyed new cheese, he reflected on what he had learned. He realized that when he had been afraid to change, he had been holding on to the illusion of the old cheese that was no longer there. So, what was it that made him change? Was it the fear of starving to death? Hall smiled as he thought it certainly helped. Then he laughed and realized that he had started to change as soon as he learned to laugh at himself and at what he'd been doing wrong. He realized the fastest way to change is to laugh at your own folly. Then you can let go and quickly move on. He knew he had learned something useful about moving on from his mice friends. Sniff and Scurry, they kept their life simple. They didn't overanalyze or overcomplicate things. When the situation changed and the cheese had been moved, they changed and moved with the cheese. He would remember that. Hall had also used his wonderful brain to do what little people could do better than mice. He envisioned himself in realistic detail, finding something better, much better. He reflected on the mistakes he had made in the past and used them to plan for the future. He knew you could learn to deal with change. You could be more aware of the need to keep things simple, be flexible, and move quickly. You did not need to overcomplicate matters or confuse yourself with fearful beliefs. You could notice when the little changes began so that you would be better prepared for the big change that might be coming. He knew he needed to adapt faster, for if you do not adapt in time, you might as well not adapt at all. He had to admit the biggest inhibitor to change lies within yourself and that nothing gets better until you change. Perhaps the most important, he realized that there's always new cheese out there, whether you recognize it or not at the time, and that you are rewarded with it when you go past your fear and enjoy the adventure. He knew some fear should be respected as it keeps you out of danger, but he realized most of his fears were irrational and had kept him from changing when he needed to. He didn't like it at the time, but he knew the change had turned out to be a blessing in disguise, and it led him to find better cheese. He had even found a better part of himself. As Hall recalled what he had learned, he thought about his friend Him. He wondered if Him had read any of his sayings Hall had written through on the wall of the cheese station C and throughout the maze. Had Him ever decided to go and move on? Had he ever entered the maze and discovered what could make his life better? Or was Him still hemmed in because he would not change? Hall thought about going back to Cheese Station to see if he could find Him, assuming that Hall would find his way back there. If he found Him, he thought he might be able to show him how to get out of his predicament. But Hall realized he had already tried to get his friend to change. Him had to find his own way beyond his comfort and past his fears. No one else could do it for him or talk him into it. He somehow had to see the advantage of changing himself. Hall knew he had left a trail for him and that he could find his way if he just read the handwriting on the wall. He went over and wrote down a summary of what he learned on the largest wall of Cheese Station Inn. He drew a large picture of cheese around all the insights that he had become aware of, and he smiled as he looked at what he had learned. The handwriting on the wall, number 1 is change happens. They keep moving the cheese. Number 2 is anticipate change. Get ready for the cheese to move. Number 3 is monitor change. Smell the cheese so often so you know when it's getting old. Number 4 is adapt to change quickly. The quicker you let go of old cheese, the sooner you can enjoy new cheese. Number 5 is change. Move with the cheese. Number 6 is enjoy change. Savor the adventure and enjoy the taste of new cheese. And then number 7 is be ready to change quickly and enjoy it again and again. They keep moving the cheese. Okay, I know you're thinking she read a whole entire book to us. So this last little page says, Hall realized how far he'd come since he had been with him in Cheese Station C, but he knew it would be easy for him to slip back if he got too comfortable. Each day he inspected Cheese Station Inn to see what the condition of his cheese was. He was going to do whatever he could to avoid being surprised by unexpected change. While Hall still had a great supply of cheese, he often went out to the maze and explored new areas to stay in touch with what was happening around him. He knew it was safe to be aware of his real choice than to isolate himself in his comfort zone. Then Hall heard what he thought was a sound of movement. As the noise grew louder, he realized that someone was coming. Could it be that Him was arriving? Was he able to turn the corner? Hall said a little prayer and hoped that he had as many times that maybe at last his friend was finally able to move with the cheese and enjoy it. The end, or is it a new beginning? Okay, so I know that was really long. Some people hate storytelling, but I read this twice now today, and you know what my word was for the year? It was change. Little did I know that change started with a haircut, and then it started with everything that's happened this whole year of 2020. I mean, it's just been one change after the other, right? And so as I read this book, you know, you think about us as Mary Kay consultants, and you think some Mary Kay consultants, they're like Sniffy. They're like, all right, let's go. And they just seem to hop right to the next thing. They could just go in the scurry, the little my-shaped scurry. He just says they don't analyze it, overcomplicate it. They're just like, okay, well, let's just go do something else, right? Just like my cats outside, when I feed them, if I decide to start feeding them in a new place, they don't go, why? Where's my cat food? Why am I not eating on the steps? I always go on the steps. They're like, wherever the cat food is, I'm gonna go over there and eat it now. Okay. But the little people, Him and Hall, that's us, right? And so a lot of times we don't move and we don't look out there to see what could be better. So what I was thinking about this time is we're all having to do different things. And some of us have resisted it and are like, nope, I'm just gonna sit here. I'm not gonna do anything. I'm gonna take naps. I'm gonna put on my sweatpants and I'm gonna get fat and I'm just gonna wait. And one day it'll be back the way it was. But you guys, even when all this is over, it won't ever be back exactly the way it was. And you know what? The people that figure it out and start learning some new tools, when we're done, we're going to be better off. And it's going to be where we're like, man, now there's 2 ways to work my business, face to face or online. And you're going to be like way ahead of the game. it's going to be amazing, right? And I think about times by Mary Kay that, like, I will say as a sales director, I think about the cheese, okay? And I think of it like unit members. And I'm like, maybe I'm not recruiting as much. And I know that my numbers are going down, but I'm not looking at, like, don't look at it, don't look at it, turn your head. And then all of a sudden, you're not doing as well as you were because, like, you didn't realize that some of your unit, half your unit's gone because you didn't bring any new cheese in the unit. And some of your old cheese left. It got mold. You had to throw it out, right? And some just moved on. So I mean, it's so many things that you can say about it. But to me, when I read it, the book at the beginning talked about a guy that they kept they moved him in his company, and he was so upset, and he got so mad, and they had him start teaching. He was coaching one thing, and they moved him to a different place. They took him off of swimming, which is what he loved, and they put him in this other place in another city. But he ended up loving it, and he ended up being like a ski instructor and learned something new, and then ended up being like, that was his claim to fame. But he resisted it so much because people don't like change. So I'm going to let the sales directors just tell me what they got out of this little bedtime story and where they see them in this little story, and what they think of it. And I hope y'all can see yourself in some of this and how we can kind of navigate through. So I'm going to start with Selah tonight.
Oh,
hang on, Selah. Okay.
Okay. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm excited to be on here in Living Color tonight. That was a great book, Cleta. I have read it before, but it has been a while. So really, I could see myself in all the different characters of the book. I think the mice that would make change, there are things that come a little easier, and in our businesses we can make change. And sometimes if you kind of know what you're doing, it's easier to make change. For me, on the technical side of what's going on with our business right now, it's been hard because I just don't understand the technical side of it. But obviously I'm being forced to do that. I know I'll be stronger for it. And then I think, like you said, that the fear of the unknown, I think, has shut some of us down. But I was thinking over the weekend that really, we kind of tell ourselves when things are going great that we are in control, and we think that, oh, as long as the money's flowing in, the business is going, that we got it, and oh yeah, God, we know you're there, but we're moving down the track. And then when things go bad, we're like, oh my gosh, I'm totally out of control. I need the Lord. But the truth is, we're never in control, and the Lord is always in control. And so this, I fully believe that He is going to walk us through this, and we're going to come out stronger on the other side. And He does have us. So this is just a great reminder for us to just work, and certainly don't be him. Hall was, Hall was, he doubted, but then he kind of figured it out. And then if we can just not doubt at all and go on and work, I think it'll be a great thing. So thank you.
Yes, thank you, Selah. So true, so true. In the book, the last of the book, it talks about this. It was like a high school reunion that got together and talked about all the changes. And they were talking about one company, and that the people that were the hymns that didn't change, they said, well, what happened to them at this particular job? They go, well, we had to let them go because they would not adapt to the new change, and it was talking about the time where, and a lot of this reminds me of Selah's dad so much, because Selah's dad had that business, and it's when Walmart came in and the big stores, and he had to adapt to change. And had he not, he would not still be open. And my dad, the same thing. They had to adapt to change from the printing company of what they were doing and do it differently. So businesses that are still going have learned to adapt to the change. So Anyway. All right, Selah, thank you so much. All right, Latrice.
Hey, can you see me? I did the wild hair today. Anyway, with all of us sitting at home and all that good stuff. But anyway, I love the story. And what I just want to say is how much it related to what's going on now. and how blessed we are that we have Mary Kay mentors like you and from the company. And I know a lot of y'all were on yesterday for the summit, but the change, I'm blessed. We're all blessed that Mary Kay was equipped for this. And sometimes it is hard, but on the other side of this, we're all going to be so thankful that we have the technology. And I'm like Selah, I'm a little challenged occasionally, as Cleta knows. But anyway, I just think that the here and now, we're so prepared. Like we have so many people that are with us and have gone before us and are continuing to just keep us in what we need to be doing. And I'm just so thankful. And I just think that with Mary Kay and what's going on, they stay on top of everything and how awesome. I know a lot of companies aren't. And I just want to thank everybody. I really do. And thank you that I'm in this company and I have learned so much and we will be moving forward as we are today. So anyway, thank you for the story. I loved it.
Story time with Cleta.
It is.
You know what? I used to have a fifth grade teacher that used to read to us, and we would just sit there. I just loved it. Anyway, y'all might be the one that says, please don't ever do that again. But you know what I was thinking though, Mary Kay, y'all think about it. She and the company always embraced change. Like they were one of the first people to come out. I remember when they said www.marykay.com and they had these t-shirts. I thought, I don't even get that. And then they had hashtag something. And I thought, what does that even mean? Hashtag. I mean, like, really, what's the number sign mean? Do y'all remember that? But they like were way ahead. And
Yes.
they have always done that for us. Thank goodness that they're all over it, even when we're not. So
Yep.
Thanks, Latrice. Okay, Lori?
Hey everybody. Like Selah, I had read that book years and years ago. I need to pull it back out too.
Yeah.
And there was one of the quotes that you said in there, and I was trying to write it down, but I think I missed part of it. But one of the thoughts that I had written was something along the fact of when you change what you believe, you'll change what you pursue or something. And one of the things, because I had read the book and I can see myself in every single character in there at different times. And but I loved what it said. I'd forgotten about the handwriting on the wall and leaving yourself that trail. And I'm like, that is so, so important. One, so that you can find your own way again, so it's important for us to either journal or, leave ourselves notes or, one author, leadership author, I can't remember if it was John Maxwell or someone else, but he said that, he read a lot of books and, it's like when you read a leadership book, and this one in particular, it's like, what is that one element that you want to remember from that book? What was the nugget of truth that you needed for your life? And he would always write them on these little 3x5 index cards. And he just kept those index cards, for years as he would read leadership books. And when he would need to when he had a downtime or whatever, that was like his handwriting on the wall. And so he would go back and get that little nugget when he needed some inspiration or just needed to get his mind right. And the other thing, as far as leaving that, is it's the testimony for yourself or for someone else that's following behind you. And I'm like, that is so true. And it's like, what is the handwriting that we're leaving for others and for ourselves to come back to? So that was kind of my little nugget and takeaway from that is either journal or just the other day I was I have a little I'm a sticky note person, and I don't remember if it was in Mary Kay or some other, but it just said momentum equals mass times velocity. And it was like, when you don't, if you need to get that momentum yourself, if you have a small business, small customer base or small unit or whatever, then that velocity along with that smaller mass is what builds your momentum. Whereas if you've got a large mass, you can move, the momentum. You don't have to go as fast to see that. But anyway, so leaving those breadcrumbs that was kind of my takeaway from that. So thank you for the reminder.
I like that. It reminds me of when I made the biggest change in my career when I was going for the trip. This was 8 years ago. And I thought about getting back into that maze. I know y'all is kind of crazy, but I thought, I've already done that. I've already went through all that. I've already done 10 junior classes. I've already got 10 junior recruits. But I knew, like, if I wanted a bigger piece of cheese and some new cheese, I thought I'm gonna have to do it again. And I'm like, and so like what she said about your customer base, when you first start, Mary Kay, that's a lot of times where you get 10 or 20 new customers, just like that, because you're working. But then you got to be willing to go back, let me go back to that maze and let me go find some new customers again. And not ever feel like you never have to do that again. There's directors, I mean, there's national directors that are still facialing people and learning and asking me questions about Zoom. Not nationals maybe, but top directors, because they still want to learn. And they said, look, I'm willing to do it again to get some new cheese. So thank you, Loree. Okay, let's see here. Miss Rosie. Yep, talk up just a little bit. That's a little bit better.
I don't know why, but my phone, whenever I go to use my iPhone, the volume automatically goes down and I have to make it go up again. It's just,
yeah, it's pretty low, really.
There's a little bit of room on it or something. Anyway, you can hear me okay now, though?
Yeah, just talk loud.
Okay. I read this book when I was teaching, and I'm just kind of chuckling to myself because it has a whole different meaning now, as a Mary Kay director. And it's just really interesting to me. And I was thinking that I think part of the reason change is hard right now for us, at least for me, is that we've been taught, or I've been taught, the value of always being face to face, person to person. And I think that's what makes, for me, that's what makes me resist a little bit the going online and having that, having the Facebook parties and the online presence, because it goes so contrary to what we've been taught. But we do have to change. And two things that I wrote down, what would you do if you weren't afraid? And I think that's huge. And I'm going to think about a lot more about that tonight. And then when they talked about visualization, how much have we talked about that in Mary Kay and painting the vision, and my responsibility as a director is to paint the vision for consultants. So anyway, I like story time, so I thought that was really good. So I was really looking forward to tonight just to have some sense of not normalcy, like I don't think my life's abnormal right now, but just a sense of, it is a sense of normalcy, being able to talk and see you guys. So thank you so much for the call, Cleta.
You're welcome. Thank you, girl. Okay, Miss Jana.
Hello. Hey, okay, so guess what? Those who resist change are making a choice to stay where they're at or decline in their business. That's just how that works. And so it's painful for me to slow down and learn. I scurry. I don't take time to learn. And so when it's time to pivot, it's almost painful for me, and that's okay because it's painful for everyone to change at some point. But I learned how to do online partings a while back, and then I didn't do it again because I do love being with people. But you know what? This is being with people as well. And so this is a time. And so I knew this is something that I just needed to stop, learn it, or, get a plan. And after I got into it, it wasn't as scary, just like, them making changes. So I think it's so important to make sure that you're making changes that are necessary, or you're going to be in this with the stinky cheese. And number 2, friends can hold you back. Did you know along the story, and that there was I don't remember if it was him or Ha. I think him was being the negative and entitled fool. So, like, this is what I'm accustomed to. This is what I'm used to. Do we really have to go and do that? Do we, how long will you be around those types of people? I'm not kidding. How long will you spend in that zone until you decide somebody else, those sales directors, they got the good cheese. And so I'm gonna go get some of that good cheese. You know what I mean? What are you doing playing around? You could, instead of have little piece of cheese, you can have big piece of cheese. And the great part about Mary Kay is that people will help you learn what you need to know to get where you want to go. And so that's a beautiful part about this. It's not like a secret how to become successful. And then I know that you already touched on this a little bit, Cleta, but I think people really do get too comfortable and entitled, and we're never too good to grow and learn and be in the field, you know. I want to lead the way, and for, you know, I think when you are your best, you're leading the way so other people can follow you. So whatever your position is, it doesn't matter whether you're brand new in the business or you're a veteran, but there is something to be said for somebody that's leading the way and walking the walk, and willing to make the changes. So, and stay moving. Moving in a new direction is totally okay, because you know, when you're running your head against the wall, you should pivot, because your head's going to start hurting. So anyway, and it's okay to stay hungry, because they were hungry all the time, and it's okay to not be a glutton, but keep a healthy level of hunger. And I think setting goals keeps us hungry too, and working with people that are where, or associating with people and focusing on following people that are where you want to be. So anyway,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you for mentioning that about the friends, because I know we've all had friends that, like, you're fixing to maybe register for something. They're like, "Are you really going to go to that?" Like, I don't think I'm going to go. You don't. I mean, what are they going to say different than they said last time? You know, whether it's a sales meeting, where it's a career conference, a seminar, and you have, so those friends, I mean, you can try to encourage them, but at some point, if you feel the need to move, you're going to have to leave them. You really are. And you pray that sometime, just like, you know, Hall, he still wanted his buddy to come. And so, but he just couldn't keep him down. So thank you for saying that.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Katie?
Hey, ladies. Can you all hear me?
Yep.
Okay, good. Okay. So I loved that story. I haven't read it before. I've heard of it. But I really enjoyed story time with Cletus. Thank you for doing that. I wanted to talk about the opportunity. One thing that I've really noticed this last week, especially after listening to the story and how much we can relate to it right now, but I have had the opportunity to create some personal connections with old contacts that maybe I had forgotten about, but they've kind of resurfaced since we've had to kind of switch things to virtual. And I'm not a creature of change. I don't like change either. I would say I would live in this house that I have right now for the rest of my days if it was up to me, because I don't like moving. I don't like leaving things, but that's just not how it works. And so anyways, I wanted to share with you guys that I was talking to an old friend of mine, and I actually did an interview with her today over the phone. And how we kind of came about to doing this is I had shared with her that I was going to be donating some pampering sets, some satin hand sets to my local medical community, and she just took it up and was so touched by it. And I haven't had a conversation with this girl in years. And from our conversations over Facebook, and then over text message, and then over the phone over the last only 48 hours, she is now wanting to become a beauty consultant. And it's like, it was just these small little steps. And if I hadn't posted something that took me 30 seconds to post, and I just did it on a whim, I don't know if I would have made that connection with her. And then she referred me to 10 of her closest friends, and I sent them all pampering packs this week. So I was just blown away by that one instance. And I just, you never know what's going to happen when you take one step in faith, and 5 seconds of courage is what Janice Strunk always used to tell me, Katie, take 5 seconds of courage. You never know what you can do with those 5 seconds. And so the other thing that I wanted to say is, Larry, you also talked about this with journaling. I'm not very good at that, but I started journaling at the beginning, maybe to middle of my DIQ journey, and I've continued that. And how many things have happened in the last 6 months is just mind-blowing and crazy. But so I'm going to really enjoy reading that journal years from now. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is, I am a big believer in the reasons behind why we go through things and why things are happening right now. Because like Selah said, we are never in control. God is always in control, even when things are great or when things are not great. And so remembering that there are reasons why things are happening the way they are. And I've just been challenging myself pretty much daily. I have to tell myself, okay, Katie, what is the silver lining that you can see today within these four walls of your home, whether it's in your business or whether it's in your being a mom, being a wife, and trying to see those positive pieces. So anyway, those are the things that I wanted to share. And I, again, do not like change, but with these small changes that I've been making in my business, I am starting to reap some of the seeds that I've been planting. So I'm really excited to see what happens in April.
I'm proud of you, girl. You know, DIQs and new directors, you're in a constant state of change for a couple of years because new. And so you can let it stop you or go, okay, I'm excited. Let's go for it, you know? So I'm proud of you, girl. I really am. And thank you for sharing tonight. Okay, I saw Stephanie on here a few minutes ago and she left, but we have a visitor on here that's on our Boss Babe call tonight, Miss Joyce Robinson. Joyce, would you like to add something tonight? I've unmuted you.
Hello. Am I unmuted?
Yep.
Okay, hi. I'm just jumping in on everything now. I'm becoming a tech expert. I tell you, yes, it's been a minute since I read that story, Cleta, and I'm telling you, it now is the time for it. I'm telling you, it's time for us to move the cheese and keep on moving it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's about it for tonight.
All right.
And thank you so much for the call. But
yeah, for hopping on here. We're glad, thank you for hopping on here. We're glad to see you on here. So
yes.
Don't know Joyce, she's one of our local Mary Kay directors in Valdosta. So anyways, good to see you.
Yes, thanks.
You're welcome. Okay, you guys. Well, that's what we have to share tonight. I know we're a few minutes over, but think about that this week, about yourself and how you're handling the change. And just know that even if you're scared, if you start moving forward, and I think the biggest thing one of the biggest things is visualize where you're wanting to go. And you might even need to visualize seminar and that prize you were going for and how it's going to feel when you made it. And, you know, be very detailed. And when you really start to dream about what you want, because that's going to give you that energy to keep going. Okay. I'm praying for you guys. I know it's tough. And I know some of you have been dealing with even people that you may know that have the virus. I know I have some people friends of mine that have family members that have it. We're just, we're praying for everybody. And, you know, just reach out to your director, your sister consultants. You're not alone. That's one thing about Mary Kay, is that you don't work for some big company that doesn't care about you. We care about you. And we're glad y'all connected with us tonight. So for my YouTubers, be sure and make a comment so I'll know that you were on here, because I'll have no idea if you don't. So thank y'all for chiming in tonight. And we will see y'all next week. That's for sure.